Well, he didn't get a bear hug at the airport or even a joint visit to Gujarat. He didn't even get a tweet. Prime Minister Modi's glaring silence on the visit of Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to India hasn't gone unnoticed. The government says it's followed old protocol, and after all, Trudeau is here on a week-long state visit, which wouldn't have been possible if this wasn't an important visit. But the cold vibes are glaringly obvious. This is the reason why. There have been accusations that Trudeau's ministers are linked to Sikh separatists, and that has overshadowed this trip.
No welcome tweet, no airport hug, and no joint visit to Gujarat. Is Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau getting the Modi snub? He may have been playing the Indian card in full force with his family while visiting Gujarat, but accusations that members of his cabinet have links with Sikh separatists or are soft on them are dogging Trudeau's trip. The Canadian media has in particular highlighted what they see as a snub. Mr. Modi chose not to go to his home state with the Canadian leader, a departure from his visits with other world leaders like Xi Jinping, Shinzo Abe and Benjamin Netanyahu. However, government sources deny any snub, telling NDTV, the Prime Minister need not accompany a visiting dignitary everywhere, that the Prime Minister breaks protocols at the airport only as an exception, and that there is no dilution of relations with Canada. In Ahmedabad, Trudeau, meanwhile, spoke with students at the Indian Institute of Management.
We are certainly very interested in pursuing trade negotiations with a broad range of countries, including India.
Prime Minister Trudeau meets Modi in Delhi on Friday. An NDTV Bureau report.
Well, joining us on the program tonight, we have in the studio with us Ruby Dhalla, who's a former Canadian Member of Parliament, is an active politician, and great to have you here in the studio with us. Ambassador K.C. Singh is back with us this evening. Vivek Dahija, who is a senior fellow at the IDFC Institute, a well-known economist, someone who divides his time between India and Canada, and Mr. Sheshadri Chari joining us again on the program this evening. Ruby Dhalla, let me take this to you first. What do you make of this entire row? The fact is that the headlines today about Justin Trudeau's visit have now been dominated by this rather negative vibe between the two sides. I'm sure you noticed there was no hug and no tweet.
I think that it's really unfortunate that the Prime Minister Trudeau has been in the headlines for the wrong reasons. You know, Canada and India share great values of pluralism, of democracy. We have a huge Indian diaspora in Canada of almost 1.4 million people. We have the Punjabi diaspora, which has done phenomenally well, and they've achieved great success in Canada. And to come here and to see some of these headlines, I think is unfortunate, because the trip was supposed to be about trade, about the economy, and really trying to work together to foster that trade relationship with an economic partnership agreement, and that unfortunately has not been the case of discussion.
But the reason that's there is because I think India has serious concerns about Sikh separatists, and therefore there is this perception or this belief that Justin Trudeau is soft to Sikh separatists, and therefore doesn't Mr. Trudeau have a responsibility here? You know,
to be honest with you, I have been born and raised in Canada. I myself am a Sikh. I'm a very proud Sikh. I'm a Canadian as well, and I'm certainly not a separatist. And I think to paint every Sikh and every Punjabi that lives in Canada with the same brush, I think is really unfortunate and unfair. There's so much of an opportunity, you know, whether it's in the areas of nuclear cooperation or whether it's in manufacturing or civil aviation, for both countries to work together. But the entire discussion since he has landed has been focused on the issue of Khalistan, which, you know, should not be the case. There is just so much of a world of opportunity. You know, when we take a look at trade, our bilateral trade relationship with India is at $8 billion in services. We take a look at the bilateral trade of goods, it's $2 billion. You know, in Canada with the US is $2 billion a day. So there's a lot of opportunity for Canada and India to
So you believe this shouldn't have got overshadowed by this controversy. But Ambassador K.C. Singh, it's not just as Ruby Dhalla says. She says don't generalize all Sikhs as separatists or terrorists, which is right. But in Justin Trudeau's case, there are very specific allegations against very specific people in his cabinet, and some of them are very troubling. We have a graphic actually showing what some of those allegations are. Do you think that the government of India is handling this the right way?
No, you have to engage him. You have to sensitize him. And how do you do it unless you meet him? And I wrote a piece in the Tribune, in fact, encouraging Captain Singh to not come up with conditions on
now,
which
Amrinder Singh is meeting him.
No, which is good, which is a very good thing. It's a state that needs financial aid. It's a state that needs links with the Sikh diaspora and the Punjabi diaspora, which can invest in Punjab. So you become a bridge. Punjab Chief Minister can be a bridge. But I think he's nursing a certain grouse because before the elections, he was denied a visa. And he thought that AAP had got across to the separatists, which was again probably just a canard. And they are the ones who got him the visa denied, so he could not go there. Now the fact remains that that was probably Canada throwing the book at him, which has not happened before. Because they said, according to their laws, you can't come from another country and solicit political support for your elections in your country. It was never done before. Akalis have gone there, previous Congress leaders have gone there. So he probably thought he was being singled out. So he nursed that. But I'm very glad he's going to Amritsar. You need to sit down and talk to the Prime Minister, sensitize him, and separate the important issues from what your concerns are, and see how the Prime Minister will address them. And there's a way of addressing them, because I think the relationship has broken down in Canada, where they are saying that no official can visit a Gurdwara.
Yeah.
Now, if 1/3 of the population of the diaspora are Sikhs.
But the fact is, he is here on a very long state visit, right, for the whole week. No, the Prime Minister doesn't always go to the airport to receive leaders. You know that better than anyone else. So, in a sense, is India doing the right thing by walking this tightrope? You've got here, you're honouring him as with a state visit, and yet you're not going the whole hog and giving a certain message.
But they are scheduled to meet, you know.
No, of course they are. They have to.
See,
They-
normally,
on
now I
Friday.
don't know who's responsible for structuring this visit, but normally you do the official part first.
Normally, yes, yeah.
So you come into Delhi, do the official part,
And then go everywhere
do
else.
your handshake or hug or whatever kind of engagement you want, and then do your wandering in India. Now, in this case, what's happened is they put the official thing at the end of the India Jamboree.
Yeah.
So you got photo ops here and there,
And then Friday
and
is
then
the
you
meeting.
come back to Delhi for that. I don't know who did that, but that's really the wrong way around. You should have done it the other way, anticipating that these issues will come up. I've of course always been a critic of Prime Minister breaking protocol, because when I was in Rashtrapati Bhavan in the 80s, for every visit the President and the Prime Minister used to go to the airport. But they cut that down because they said for security, for other things,
And
do
make
the
it an
ceremony
exception.
in the forecourt of Rashtrapati Bhavan, which is where you meet them. But if you start making exceptions, then these questions arise. Why didn't you hug someone?
Everybody
Yeah. In US,
expects the exception.
US president, we are a potential major power.
So
you don't make exceptions.
Vivek Dahija, just to get a sense from you, as someone who sort of straddles both countries, how are you seeing this visit play out? Are you disappointed by how this has gone down? Do you think the responsibility lies with Justin Trudeau to set the record straight with the Indian government? Or do you think that the Indian government is really doing the right thing in the way that it's handled this?
Well, Nidhi, a couple of things. One is I called this about a week ago, saying that this visit did not bode well. The signs were not good. This Khalistan issue was looming over the visit, and I think it's no secret that on the Indian side they were not terribly keen on Mr. Trudeau visiting. I think again, no secret, he wanted to come on 26 Jan. That was sort of nixed, and he came here kind of a little bit later on this long visit that looks like a long page from Lonely Planet, with a family sort of touring the usual spots, with no Prime Minister, no Chief Minister of UP or Gujarat. So it's a very strange visit. I think Mr. Trudeau, in his enthusiasm to play to the diaspora back home, has been a little too enthusiastic. The missing piece is this, Nidhi. The noise will dominate when there's no signal. The signal would have been a major trade deal. Now that's been hanging fire since 2010. So that's the missing prince from Hamlet. There's no trade deal, so all of this noise will all bubble up.
Well, Mr. Chari, is this a deliberate messaging to Justin Trudeau? Is it a deliberate government strategy to tell him that the Indian government isn't quite happy?
No, Nidhi, first thing first, I think it's very wrong to say that the government of India is sort of pre-planned this kind of a snub and all that. If at all, it's very unfortunate that Mr. Trudeau is having to share the limelight with another Modi. If I come to your own show, you said this, you are going to start the show at 9:30 and you started at 9:45. So you have taken 15 minutes of Trudeau's time on your own show.
Well, the other Modi is kind of important. But go ahead.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You have made my point. Unfortunately, I don't think this visit is any less important as far as government of India is concerned. And there is a genuine feeling from both the sides, from the Canadian side as well as the Indian side, to mend the fences. Of course, there have been some irritants in between, like the Khalistani issue and all that, as KC Singh pointed out, but that does not mean that we value his visit any less. Of course, in a very strategic terms, Canada plays a very important role, but not as important a role as Iran and India relations would play, or China and India relations should play, or US and India relations should play. But Canada is a very important trade partner, more importantly on the issues of agriculture, higher education, people to people contacts, and these are all some of the issues where we require Canadian help, and Canada also requires the help of India. So I think these two countries are on their way to mend the fences, and I think the trade relationship will also improve. So I don't think.
Well, I'm glad you're sounding more optimistic. Vivek, sitting next to you, just want to ask him that, do you share that optimism, Vivek Dahija, or do you feel that Justin Trudeau just hasn't done enough to address those irritants that India has? And those are not just irritants; those are, serious reservations that the Indian security establishment has.
Yeah. So Nidhi, I do not share this enthusiasm. Let's face facts. I mean, the total trade and investment between the two countries is less than 1% of each country's trade and investment. So the fact is that India is a footnote for Canada and vice versa at the present, apart from the large diaspora link, and that is the link. Having said that, Mr. Trudeau has serious credibility issues on Khalistan. He has members of his government and his cabinet who have been, shall I say, fellow travelers with Khalistanis. They've been sympathizers. They have not been forthright in condemning Khalistan separatism, extremism. The worst terrorist episode in Canada's history, Nidhi, was the Air India bombing. That was totally botched by the government of Canada, which investigated it. That still rankles in India, I think, as it should. So I think Mr. Trudeau has some serious issues to address to actually say credibly, look, we have put this Khalistan issue behind us. The truth is, Nidhi, that many Sikh Canadian politicians, I'm not naming anyone, speak in two voices. They say one thing in Punjabi in the town halls back in Richmond, BC and Toronto suburbs, something different publicly. And until one comes clean about that reality, we won't move beyond this, in my view.
There are a couple of important points you raised there. And before I come to Ruby on what you said, I just want to ask Seshadri Chari that, Mr. Chari, you're saying that the visit is not any less important for India. But let's face it, I think as KC Singh rightly said, in a sense, Mr. Modi has risen the expectations of world leaders, because he's gone so often to the airport to meet and greet world leaders. And it's not the protocol, he doesn't have to, but he's done it. That there is an expectation that if the visit is important enough, Mr. Modi will come. Also, he's not even tweeted a welcome. I mean, that's so unlike Mr. Modi. And then Trudeau goes to Gujarat today, and Narendra Modi is not, with him in his hometown. You don't think that that's unusual? You don't think that that's a signal, Mr. Chari?
I don't think these things are all going to be very important when they sit down to do business. I think both the countries, both India and Canada, have been dealing with them for a number of years, and there have been certain issues like this. For example, when Modi visited Canada, the Prime Minister did not come to receive him at the airport. So that doesn't mean that India-Canada relations were at the lowest end. In fact, India.
But normally, Mr. Modi is a prolific tweeter. I mean, he normally will tweet a welcome in the language of the, visiting dignitary. In this case, he could have tweeted even a welcome to India. There was nothing. I'm just saying that it's very clear that the vibes are much colder.
I'm sure the PMO will look into it, and then, it's not that Modi himself sits and tweets and all this.
No, I know.
There is a section in the PMO which does all these things, and the PMO will do it, of course. And they have conveyed it, of course. They have conveyed it to the visiting delegation, and they are looking after the delegation. And a very important member of the cabinet, the Minister for Agriculture himself, has gone to receive him. And India and Canada deal in agriculture for the most of the times. So it's not that any
that
less
is what was seen as a slight by some of the Canadian media. But
no,
Ruby, very quick last question.
Well, Canadian Parliament, Canadian politicians, and Canadian back home, Trudeau has got a number of people who would want to put him on the wrong side of the media. So we should not go by what the Canadian media says. I think we should go by what the government of India says.
All right, Ruby Dhalla, last comment. What Vivek Dahija said, that there's not been enough even strong condemnation on the Khalistani issue from the Trudeau government. How would you see that?
You know, to be honest, again, we cannot paint every single Sikh
Nobody's
that lives
doing
in
that.
Canada.
What about the serious allegations about people in his own cabinet?
With the same brush, the people in his cabinet actually 2 weeks before coming did issue a statement saying that they believe in a united India, that they are not sympathizers, and they wanted to focus, this particular trip and their relationship with India, on trade and on building the economies of both nations and creating jobs. So that condemnation was issued by both of the ministers, but I think that, time and time again, this issue has been an irritant for many, many years. I first got elected in 2004, and it was being spoken about then. It's 2018, it's still being spoken about now. But, again, being a proud Sikh, we cannot paint every Sikh and every Canadian, as a sympathizer. I think that is really unfortunate. There's people like myself and millions of others in Canada which believe in a united India. And that's why I hope the rest of the trip, including when the Prime Minister Modi and Trudeau have talks on the 23rd, that we're going to be able to move forward on a positive note.
All right, well, let's hope that that's what happens. And Mr. Chari, we hope we can have 20 minutes or 25 minutes on Trudeau's visit when that happens, rather than just the last 15 minutes of the show. All right, thank you very much to all of you for joining us tonight. That's it on Left, Right and Centre this evening. We'll be back tomorrow night. Vishnu Shom is up next with the big trending stories of the day. And unfortunately, Mr. Chari, I don't think Justin Trudeau is the top trending story. Guess what that story will be. That's coming up next.